Welcome to another episode of the International Classroom Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Gray, and today we've got an exciting conversation lined up for you with Andrew Wright, founder of EduMetaverse and a passionate advocate for transforming education through virtual worlds and cutting-edge technology. Now, in this episode, we're going to dive into Andrew's journey from classroom teacher to digital innovator, exploring how the EduMetaverse is completely changing learning environments by creating immersive, engaging, and globally connected experiences for students. So, whether you're a teacher looking to engage your students in new ways or a school leader curious about the future of EdTech, this episode is packed with practical insights, passionate discussions, and a sneak peek into the virtual worlds that bridge the gap between traditional classrooms and the digital age. Oh man, Andrew, thank you so much for joining me on the International Classroom Podcast. Whereabouts in the world do we find you today?
I'm in Sydney, rainy Sydney. We just had torrential rain, which just sounds really odd because you think of Australia as being this really beautiful, sunshiny place. It's pouring with rain.
And for those discerning listeners and viewers out there, that's not a very Australian accent you've got, is it?
No, I'm originally from Devon, which is even more of a stronger accent. But I managed to have that accent hammered out. So I tend to have got like a really neutral accent. So yes, I was born in Devon and now I'm here in Sydney in Australia.
How long have you been in Australia for?
It's about 12 years, so long enough to have picked up a proper Ocker accent, but it's not coming through. So.
Well, maybe throughout the episode we'll hear some sort of slang phrases drop in there, and we can
I'll slip into it. I'll forget where I am, and I'll start going. You basically just got to put an O on the end of everything. So like a round O, the bottle O, everything's got an O on the end of it.
You sound like my wife talking to my young children. It's like, what was she doing yesterday? She said something. And I said, I'm just going to the office. I went, I'll put it into context for you. I'm going to the office-EO, because she ends everything with EOs for the kids.
Okay.
They're like, I'm like, what?
It's very similar to Australian.
I suppose, yeah, very similar. Get there. So that's a long time in Australia. So let's talk about then your kind of career. So when and what, you've had a career that's gone over 2 decades, isn't it, in education? You've been teaching for a long time.
Yeah, you can see the cost. Yeah,
we've all got those.
Look at you, man. You look really dapper. I'll come in looking like an old tramp.
Oh, mate, this is the light. It's purely just good light and good cameras.
I'm going straight onto Amazon and I'm going to get lights. I'm going to get the works. Spray tan as well, because I think I could do with that.
Are you trying to insinuate that I've got a spray tan? This is natural.
No, that's exactly what I look like Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Friendly being the word there. There you go.
Very friendly.
Tell us about your teaching background in terms of where you started and how you ended up in Australia.
Yeah, well, weirdly, strangely, I sort of trained as an actor, and I did 4 years at drama school, and then my wife said to me, "You need to get a proper job." So I became a teacher, as most of them do, and that was it, really, years and years ago. So I've been in the classroom for about 25 years, and the last 10 of those have been fighting the good fight by trying to transform education in whatever way I sort of can, and bring technology to the forefront for the students I work with, and now hopefully on a wider sort of scale. But yeah, I started as a junior school teacher in London, in between acting jobs, and then just took a full-time job, and that was pretty much it. Came over to Australia and started teaching here in Cairns. We were up there for a little while, and then down to Sydney, and I've literally really just left the classroom in January. So for the first time to sort of, work on the EduMetaverse and get that happening. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the areas we want to explore today in part of this sort of mini series of EdTech innovations. So I'm curious in terms of this transition into the sort of what we call virtual world learning, and that's very much central to the work that you do. But how did that shift happen? Where did that interest originate from? Because it's very different from starting as an actor to obviously what you're doing now.
Yeah, I think, well, they say necessity is the mother of invention, right? So COVID, like everybody else, it's got the COVID story. And so I was sort of, as well as teaching, I was sort of working as an Apple Learning Specialist, and I was sort of going to schools and working with teachers to sort of try and transform the classrooms with technology. And COVID happened, we couldn't get into classrooms anymore, and we couldn't even get to our own classrooms. Here in Australia, it was pretty crazy. So we were Zoom teaching. I don't know if you remember those happy days. the halcyon days of Zoom teaching, which is just about as much use as a chocolate teapot. So, I mean, I tell this story. We had students who were really, really savvy. They were really, really like smart, and they just videoed themselves as little GIFs, and they were just like this. And I thought, hang on a second, half these kids are not even here. Look, some of them are glitching. And I realized that what they'd done is they taught themselves how to make little GIFs, and that was their background, and so they weren't even there. So we realized I know, right? So we needed something different, and we looked at a couple of things like, so we started with spatial, and then moved on to frame VR, and we were using the standard worlds that they sort of give you, and then I started thinking it'd be great if we could make our own stuff. It'd be great if we could create worlds that, were really resonate with the subjects that we were talking about. And so I went onto YouTube, and let's face it, everybody had so much time, right? So I went onto YouTube and I looked at some Blender tutorials, and I did the whole monkey face thing, and, which is the bog standard tutorial that you do, and just went from there. And I just started to pick up some skills and started designing and making worlds that are very basic to start with, and now hopefully have become a little bit more complex. And that's over the last 3 years. That's how it all started. And so now we've got 100 different worlds. I keep saying we, it's just me and a couple of other teachers who make stuff. So we've got 100 worlds all geared around different aspects of the curriculum. So it's been a bit of a crazy journey, really.
I love the story's amazing, but like the royal we, I love that.
I'm not quite sure. It's funny because I'm not quite sure whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, because there's two reasons for it when I say that, right? Because the first thing is that people will think, what an absolute lunatic. He's built 100 worlds from scratch. And that sounds a bit like, what's wrong with him? Or then there's also the fact that you're not big enough, so you have to say we. So I sort of swing between the two, depending on who I'm talking to. But to be fair, it is myself and the teachers that I either work with, or they've got a lovely lady who helps with the AI side of stuff. So so really it's just been a labor of love. And I think that's pretty much how I'd phrase the entire project, is a labor of love.
Yeah, the we part is, I refer to myself as that when we talk about the podcast. It's like, oh, we'd love to have you on. It's like, who's we? It's just literally me and engaging with this co-host. But there's this meme that's going around. There's this video that's going around about marriage being how much marriage is a teamwork, and it's basically just this wife going, I think we should take the trash out, and the husband just like, yeah, okay. He goes and does it. I think we need to go and clean the car. And then it's like, the husband's there sat there going, I think we need to go make a sandwich. And she's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Yeah. But anyway, back into this education thing we're here to talk about. EduMetaverse, we mentioned that, but obviously in this previous conversation we were talking through it. But there's going to be a few educators out there that have never come across this term before and really aren't aware of what it is. So can you just sort of take us through what the EduMetaverse is and how then this WebXR plays a role in its development?
Yeah, so the EduMetaverse is what we've called everything that we've built, and that concept of a complete metaverse. And so we built the worlds, and then the worlds become the classrooms that we teach in. So, for example, we've got a whole range of classrooms that we built to teach literacy, numeracy, like a maths castle when we want to teach maths. So the concept being that the students can come into these worlds, and we have project-based learning packs that the students can follow, or the teachers can use their own content within the worlds. So it's an entire metaverse that's really geared around education. We've just tried to get the gamification without any of the game, and that's what we're finding with the students, is that's the hook, right? So they come in and they say things like, "We're going back in the game," and in the end, I just say, "Yep, we're going back in," but there is literally no game, and they come into the worlds, and they might. We work on I'll talk about this later on. We work on a model that we've created called the hybrid classroom, which is really, really interesting because that's half in the virtual world, but still retaining the classroom facilitation by the teacher. And that's where we find the power, is because you're not chucking baby out with the bathwater. The students retain that sense of like they're going off to Mars, they're going off to the zoo, or we've built, they're going to another planet, but the teacher is still facilitating the lessons. So that hybrid classroom model, that's the key to making that metaverse work. And so it's a mixture of classroom and virtual.
Fantastic. What's been some of the most exciting things or surprising things you found as you've gone along and started developing that and working with the students in it?
Yeah, well, when we started, it was a punt, right? We didn't realize where it was going to go, and I thought we just need something different. We're hemorrhaging teachers. You've got students with mental health issues. We've got all of these things happening, and I thought we just needed to try something different. And the feedback from the students is probably the most rewarding aspect of the entire thing. We'll go to some schools, and I'll put my money where my mouth is here. We go to schools where they're not necessarily, you don't have to sit down in the classroom and look at the teacher or stare out the window. Some of these students are chucking chairs around, or they'll just tell you they'll tell you exactly what they think the second that you put something in front of them that is not authentic and is not real. But the feedback from some of those students has just been amazing. And they'll come back and they'll say, "Oh, can we go back in tomorrow?" I mean, no child ever said to me, this worksheet we did yesterday, can we do it again tomorrow? That's never happened. Said no child ever. So when you get students that are pretty, quite edgy and are not connecting with the traditional classroom, when we get them coming back and asking to come back in, or saying, "Can you leave it open for me so I can go back in and I'm gonna go home and show my mum and dad?" That's quite an emotional thing, and I think, and I know how much time has been poured into these classrooms, that they're not just, for us, they're not just classrooms, they're living, breathing spaces that grow organically alongside the students. They can put their work in there, and then it becomes theirs. And I think the power there is giving them ownership, and that for them to say. And a lot of things, like one of the worlds we've got is an Olympic frame, obviously, because I'm obsessed with the Olympics, and as a failed Olympian, that would be my dream to give that a go, right? But we have a world there which we're sort of compare. So we've got students from Mexico working with students from Australia, and they come together, and hopefully they're going to sharing their times for different things, and sharing maths questions and that sort of stuff. So we're trying to work on this global learner theme, and I think they get a real kick out of that, because it's not just being shown to their parents. You're not just doing the work for your teacher. Now you've got a global audience, and there is real power in that. And so they just become as obsessed as we do with the worlds, which is pretty cool.
So let's address the cynics there, because there's going to be cynics people out there that's going, they're just playing in a game. And I know you've mentioned the hybrid part. We'll come back to that later. But how do you, when you're going into schools, obviously everything you've said there is like high student engagement. There's a global component to this in terms of who they can interact with and the types of things they can do. But for the cynics, for the teachers who even are like, okay, well, how do I go about doing this? What's the benefit to do this? How do I embed, even traditional teaching? How do I check that learning's taking place? What would you say to them?
I'd say you need to give it a go. All right. And I'd say, but one of the questions I'll ask is, what are you doing that's any better? What are you doing that's so innovative with that worksheet, or that's so innovative with you talking to the front of the class, that's going to be any different? Or what is it that you're doing that you would think that could compare to having the absolute engagement, the students wanting to learn, wanting to come in, wanting to engage? I can't put a price on that, right? So when I know that, and I'm not just talking about the classrooms where, like I said earlier on, they're just going to sit really politely. This is students that just are so desperate to re-engage, have disengaged from the traditional classroom. They're the ones we've got to get back in. And another thing I say to teachers is, like, how do you know if you've never given it a go? Right. So, and it isn't hard to do. And, we've got training programs. We've got, you can give it a go yourself. But I think that gamification thing is just a misconception. It's almost like a lazy excuse to not do it. And that sounds awful. But do you know what I mean? It's almost like it's just gaming. It's like, well, it's not. But there's an element of gamification with no game. But how are you going to get these kids on side? I mean, they're the Minecraft generation. They're Fortnite. That's all they really care about. I mean, come off it. And if I can put the lesson into that without any of the game, it's a no-brainer that this is just the way forward, right? And I think you don't have to go. You can check out the YouTube channel under EduMetaverse and iTeach, and just watch some of those lessons, because we put those lessons up, and just put your money where your mouth is. Like, you can go and have a look at that and see the engagement. And I think what's happening in classrooms that's better or more engaging.
I think that's a great point, and I can vouch for the Fortnite thing. Having spent 5 weeks away in the UK, and my daughter's not been on it, to then coming back, it's like her friends. But it's not just that; it's the skills. Yes. If you've never seen them, if you actually take a step back and get perspective, I'm like, she's having to communicate. She's doing multiple things, like in terms of screen time, communication time. There's an element of problem solving. But you just don't see it as that, or traditionally see it as that. And so everything you've said there transitions like really nicely into this new part. So season 3, we're introducing something new for this, and it's called the Global Toolkit. And it kind of segues, what you've just said segues really nice into that. So this is going to be what we bring into the podcast episodes to try and provide sort of actionable value to our listeners. And as we said, it's called the Global Classroom Toolkit. And it's designed to offer the educators listening practical and step-by-step guidance from experts, as yourself, Andrew, on the aspects of teaching internationally and diverse educational settings. Now, the goal of this is to give a tangible takeaway that they can implement directly into their own classrooms. And so what we've spoken about, and I think what's going to be of good value here, is for you to be able to take us through and guide the listeners through the process of integrating future tech into their classrooms, and take us through sort of what the essential tools and resources they would need be, and how they can basically start small with this.
Yeah, I mean, the first place you go to is, and I'd say probably go to Frame VR. You can, which is the WebXR platform, and the reason WebXR I think is so good is because it's accessible to everybody. VR headsets tend to be amazing, but they're sort of they're expensive, and to be fair, sometimes I feel like it's like they've got a brick strapped to their face, and it's and they're working around in isolation. But with WebXR, you could choose you can go into Frame, sign up for a free account, you can use the worlds that are there. And then it's a case then of just, with a web link, a teacher could take an entire class into a world. You can upload your content, they could upload a PDF, you could have videos. And so what that means then is that the lesson doesn't end at 3:00. They could have homework clubs, they could have, videos that the students can look at. This is on a basic level. Where they could go in after school and not necessarily talk to each other, but there could be workstations there that they could cover for things that they might have missed and stuff like that. So on a basic level with the Metaverse learning, that's where I would start. I would just sign up for a free account on Frame and just have a little go, have a play around. And to be fair, and I would literally just ask the students. I've never met, in some of the worlds have had like 3,000 students come through, and I've never had one of them ask us, how do you do it? They instantly know. And so one of the things that we do is take the teachers on that learning journey with the students and get them to teach the teachers.
Amazing. I'm going to edit around this part because I'm going to put you on the spot. So you can share your screen through Riverside. And what I think is going to be really useful in this part is that if you're able to share it and take us through or showcase some of it, I think that would be really, really powerful.
All right. Let's have a look. What do you want? The zoo? That's pretty good. We've got the Olympics.
Olympics would be amazing.
Yeah.
Because, I was going to ask you in terms of what your Olympic event was.
My speciality was the wobble ball, which I actually hold the world record. So, and if anybody tells you anything different, then they're lying.
I was going to say,
I'm going to change my look around. I can show you my screen now. So I'll show you. Let's have a look.
Yeah, take us through it.
This really is putting my money where my mouth is, right? Let's have a little look. If I shut down that one, I shut down my messenger. So if I go to share screen.
Yeah, you should be able to. You should be able to do that fine.
No, you can see
there we go. Amazing. Okay. So you have opened up. So for the people out there listening, you're going to actually need to come and watch this because this is where the value and the power is. So talk us through what we've got on screen for us now, Andrew.
So this is our Olympic world. So the students that we were working, so we built this specifically for a school up on the Queensland, New South Wales border. It's an Indigenous school, and they don't necessarily get access to a lot of the stuff, and I work quite closely with these guys, and you can see up on the board, up on the, I don't know if you can see that, their little logo is up on the blimp. So what we want to do is try and engage these students into having the maths, the science, the geography, all geared around the Olympics, because obviously it's just come to an end. I don't want to talk about that because it makes me sad, because I love it so much. So we built this world for them. And then these characters here are all generated with AI. So we use Meshy AI to, oh, you can hear. So as you get closer to them, they will talk. So he's got the Olympics. So we have in here, we have a series of what's called micro lessons and macro lessons. The lesson you just saw there on the floor is the medal data tally, and bits of it are missing. So one of the lessons, because maths is obviously, and maths, numeracy, and all that sort of stuff is so important, that we wanted to get them to be doing the maths in a way that wasn't just giving them a worksheet. So the concept there is that Clive, who's a bit of a let's say he's not thinking straight, he's left the medal tallies and there's bits missing on it. And so what they have to do is come into the virtual world, either all together or with the teacher leading the session, and then take that numeracy thing with all the missing medal data, and then create, by using subtraction and addition and the 4 rules of number, they have to fill that in. Then the following sequence to that is that they then go into something like on their iPads, because we're trying to embed the technology, and then use numbers to create a chart or a Excel document that shows a pie chart of those medals and where they're from. If that makes sense. So there's multiple layers to this, and I have to tell you the story, right? Because I created this lady here, and she looks exactly like my mother-in-law, and that wasn't actually meant to happen. It just happens. She's got like she'll go forever, like literally.
I was going to say, she's holding the world record for press-ups there, isn't she? Or push-ups.
I think today she's done about 4,700,000 and something. It's quite impressive. Little things like this little robot here. If you ever saw the Olympics, the cars that were bringing back the javelins, one of the lessons that's in this PBL booklet, which I'll show you in a second, is to create a new version of this using Tinkercad or what have you, that will carry objects. As well as having some sort of AI that can talk to the athletes. So there's all sorts of stuff in here. So really the work, this lady will run absolutely forever. So we've got some people doing karate. Another thing here is they have to design a new banner, and I think she tells them. She talks about creating a new banner. So we embed things like Canva and Padlet and all those sort of stuff. This guy's funny. He's a bit annoying. Again, you've got to make a media thing for him. And those are the macro lessons. And we have all of these, everything we do is aligned to not only the curriculum, but also to the sustainability goals by the UN. So this world and all of the other ones have some element of UN sustainability goal. And I can just show you, I'll run around the back here. Hidden around the place are these numbers. And they all relate to world records. So the students have got to go away and work out who had that world record. And then what I think is absolutely key here is that we create project-based learning packs for all of the world. So when a teacher comes in and a teacher says, well, what do I do in the world? Well, then we've got this PBL pack here, which will cover absolutely everything in the curriculum that we can think of, including the sustainability goals. And for this one, we've got these two characters here, Sonia and Jay, who for the school we're working at, these are Indigenous runners and athletes, and they will lead the pack all the way through. And we have the curriculum alignment, the learning. It talks about the Olympics, talks about what it would have been like. And then you start to go into the actual activities here. So we talk about the civics, the values of the Olympics, why is that important? How does it work? And this is the best bit, right? Because here we've got the students create their own events. And what happened was that the teachers took it over. Like the teachers started creating these events, and then the teachers in other countries are trying to beat that record, which I just think is just amazing. So, and now we've got students creating events for other students like around the world, which is pretty mad. And then as you can see here, go past.
Shoe design. I was interested in the shoe design.
I'll show you the shoe design. Yeah, so I just wanted to show you this, right? Because the world record for the bobble ball, there you go. 21 point. That's not going to get beat soon.
So we're looking at this, and obviously we talked about, is it Frame? Was it Frame.io?
This is Frame VR.
Frame VR.
That's what we use primarily. We use Frame. The guys at Frame have been amazing. Gabe and Ravni, name dropping here, but those guys have just been amazing. Like they've sort of seen what we've done and really helped out with a lot of stuff. But I would say to anybody who's looking to get started, Frame VR is by far and away the best one that you could use.
This obviously, from a world perspective, is phenomenal. And obviously what we're looking at here is the end product of your knowledge and expertise and hours of input and playing around with it. But how difficult is it? I mean, obviously we've got lots of different things there, from a track to the field to the stadium to all these things through. Like if we are teachers, we're looking at this and it's like, right, I'm interested, we're curious, how do I go about building something like this? What do I need to be able to do? If you can, even if you can show us or start, take us through some examples or put something in for us, that would be really, really useful.
Yeah, I would suggest that they didn't. I mean, there's no need for them to sort of build their own sort of stuff. Like, you don't have to build a stadium. I mean, that's taken me 3 years to get to a point where I can just produce a stadium and put the people in it. And so the magic thing is that you start building, and then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, you can walk around in it. But that's not what I was saying. I mean, all of the worlds that we built can be bought. We're selling all of the worlds, and plus the BBL packs. So if a school wanted to do that, they could buy a bundle pack, or they could do, they could sign up and get access that way. But for them to actually try and do it themselves, you could just literally go to framevr.io and just click one of the worlds that are already there and start adding in your own content. No one's expecting you to go and build an Olympic stadium, but if you wanted to, there's amphitheaters and stuff like that. So you could just get a free version and just start playing with it, and then adding in like PDFs, videos, and that sort of stuff. So how it works is just along the lines. I'll just show you this quickly, because I just think there's a really nice story behind this. So this is the shoe design, and obviously this is a little model, but we can put the students' work here up on the wall, and then that can be seen to a global audience. And that's pretty amazing. I think that itself is just unbelievable, because we can now say to people, like, your work has worth. It's going to be seen by other, lots and lots of other people. And if you can see here, there's a little Google Drive. So if anybody comes in from whatever country, at the moment it's Australia and Mexico, they can drop in their work and we can add it in afterwards. So you can include things like that. And there are videos up here on the wall that the kids can watch and get them into it. And it's just the world is literally the catalyst for everything else that's happening inside it. Yeah. The micro lessons, the macro lessons. Like I said, the macro lesson here is the bigger lesson, is the shoe design. And you don't even have to go to this level. Like, this is us going with 3 years experience of creating this amazing stuff, that this would be something that they could go away. And we talked about this as well before, like, the world isn't anything without the content. Yeah. The world is just the shell, and then the content in there is what engages the students and gets them coming back, because you know what, we can put their shoe in there after they've made it, even if it was a 3D model and they've made it on Tinkercad or they've made it on something else, and then we can start to build the world. Some of the worlds we've got are full of student stuff. So it's really, I would say, what we've done is an extreme taking it to the nth degree and build stuff because we want to build it. But for teachers who just want to start out and have that metaverse sort of style of learning, just get a free account and just download one of the free worlds and just start putting content in there.
Is it easy enough to put content in?
Yeah, I
just like a right
here,
click.
If I go to here, this is the creation menu. So once you become an administrator or you own it, then really you have an edit mode. So the creation menu is here. So when you click on this, you can add your own stuff. And now my screen is so small that I can't actually. Here you go. So I'll make it a bit bigger. Can you see that?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Add in an image, add in some text, add in a poll, add 360. This is just an advert for Frame, by the way. Add in 360 content, a 3D model, a whiteboard, PDF. Like, it literally is just so much stuff. And then you just start to build your world. I mean, this happens to be the Olympic Stadium, but it could just be a classroom. It could just be an amphitheater, whatever they've got. And to start putting stuff in there, and even on a basic level, you could just have your own virtual classroom.
Amazing. Well, yeah, it's great to see and be inspired by sort of this is what an end product to be, and this is what you can get your hands on now. As I say, you're selling these, aren't you? And you're working with schools to build authentic and bespoke things for them.
Yes, that's what I love doing the most. I love that. So we can work with schools. The school might say, "Oh, well, we would like a world." We might already have it, though, to be fair. Like if we're covering it, we've probably done it. And then really some of the cool stuff is as well. Like, I'll just show you this one because this is a really interesting one. Because you can password protect it too. So what you can do here is create content and then make sure that nobody else, because you've got that privacy issue. Sometimes here you can have so in this world, at the moment it's set to solo, but you can have it so you can have up to 300 students roaming around at the same time. With a hybrid classroom, we don't do that. I don't know if you can hear in the background, you can add sounds. And all that
I can hear the wind.
Yeah, the wind. This is a really interesting world because what's cool about this one is the fact that they come into here, and the idea being that Krusty Mary is an old lady. She used to own this theme park out in the middle of nowhere. And the idea being that the kids come back in and then they have to bring the park back to its former glory. So here we got Thomas Gill. So we can put one of his rides. So he's created this. This is obviously a real Year 3 student from one of the schools we used to work at, and then we can put his design in there. But what I think is really cool about this one is this character Mary. I've just put a post on LinkedIn actually. So by the time this comes out, you better see it. What this started out as, and this is why I think this is amazing, because the idea being that Mary, as a young lady back in the 1940s and 1950s, started this theme park. This is all part of the narrative, right? So she started this theme park. It's become run down as she's gotten older. There's a snake down there, so look out. Little things that put lots of Easter eggs in there and stuff. But as you go up into here, we use a lot of generative AI. So each one of the rides has a poster that goes with it. And part of that lesson is the kids design new posters using Canva or using all that sort of stuff. But really cool, I think, I don't know if you can see this. You know the Harry Potter style paintings that move?
Yeah.
So we started this with Mary is very, very young, and I'll show you the post in a second. And then the students see her now when they've come to the theme park and it's all broken. She's very old. And what happened with this world, which I think was quite powerful, was it then this conversation started to happen about, oh, look at her, she's so old. And then they were like, and I was like, yeah, but look, when she was younger, obviously people get older. And they're like, oh, yeah, but now she's old. And it was a really, really interesting conversation about how we, as society, we look at people. And this character, the young version of her, and then the older version, and it just went off on a completely different tangent. And it was about, then the whole conversation was how we look after our elderly, how we don't just dismiss people because they're old. And the thing about the way that you learn in these metaverse spaces is you've got to just go with it, right? You just have these moments. And that was, for me, it was a really incredible moment that then they started to say, oh, yeah, well, you know what? Just because someone's old doesn't mean they're not valued anymore. And we went down a completely different path with it. And this world then becomes something that is almost like a journey that you take them on. And they take you on as well, because they'll find things that you didn't even realize when you were building it that lead to something different. So I'm very fond of this world because I just think the character of Mary here, if you can see, I can go. And again, it's another pack. And you can see there she is when she was a lot younger. And then the idea being that she's obviously a lot older now and she's left the park and they have to fix it. So things happen in the world that just springboard off and you go into tangents that you would not normally do with a traditional classroom. Yeah. And I think what's magical about this is that the kids can take that learning. And as a teacher, then you have to be quite flexible. And what's happening is that role changes from teacher to facilitator, which is the most powerful transformation I think you can have in education.
So for this, how many hours and how long did it take you to make this?
Like I said, right, this is a labor of love, but so a lot of these come from, you can get your own models from Sketchfab. So we use a lot of models from Sketchfab that other people have made, or now with AI, you can use Meshi to create your own. But a world like this, probably most worlds take about 36 hours now to put together. And that's normally in the space of like, I'm one of those people that sort of starts, have an idea, and then I'll literally wake up at, I'll look at the clock and it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I think I suffer quite badly from ADD, and that sort of sense of focus. Yeah. For me, I'll start it and then it starts happening, and I'm like, oh, this is great. And then I'll look at the clock, like I said, and it's time just gone. But then you put the sounds in and stuff like that. But I would say you don't need to do any of that as a teacher. You could just create your own version, do whatever you want, really. It doesn't have to be a world, but ours are quite bespoke.
Yeah. I think it's one of those, isn't it? Tanging off when we're talking about AI with people, and I know you use it for here, but obviously there's a lot of people that talk about where to get started, how do I get started, and you can either go, look, this is the platform like ChatGPT, go and use it, or you can say, look, there are some companies that already have world platforms, or we're talking about Canva AI you could go in and use. You're talking about, for us it was Mindjoy, or we've got Magic School, companies that already have that, and these things set up for you to ease your way in. And I think that's obviously what you've got here is this. It's like, look, you can go and get these worlds that are already done and bespoke and try them. And if you're a teacher who's maybe really curious or, interested in creating, designing, or even working probably with the kids, I imagine, to create something like this, then have a go at it. So it's kind of, it's amazing.
Yeah. And I think I don't think anybody has to go off and to create an entire metaverse of 100 worlds. That's just, that's just what I've done. But then probably I'm not all there. But I think you can start your own stuff. There's so much generative AI stuff now that you get these models that you can just drop them in to your standard world. Like, I just wanted to show you, one of the cool things is that we have this character called Jess. Now, the cool thing about Jess, I think, is that we have got Jess in nearly all of the worlds in some form or other. And this is one we've built with DID.
All I can hear are the background noises of birds
going.
Let
me switch them off because they can be quite annoying. Yeah, it's so loud. Okay, hang on a sec. Trying to work out how to switch off the sound. Oh, wait, hang on. It's behind the thing. I've just realized where it is. Here it is.
There we go. Hidden away, is it? Hidden away.
Yeah, it's hide it behind. The kids always find it, but then you can change the settings to allow them to switch it off and switch it on. But I just want to, the character of Jess is really, anybody that works in the EduMetaverse knows Jess, and the kids know Jess because she's in most of the frames in some way or another. But what we've managed to do is age her from like 8 to 80. So she appears in the Mars world as a 25-year-old astronaut. She appears in some of the other worlds as an 80-year-old lady, but we use AI to things like Leonardo AI to age her and put her in the different worlds. And then what we can do is make her speak. So she will talk, welcome the students. So you can have students, you don't need to necessarily make a Jess, but the kids will automatically gravitate towards her. So we've sort of created this thing where they will look for her in the worlds. And again, this world has its own PBL pack, different zoos. So if you're a zoo anywhere in the world and you want to link up with us, we'd love to work with you. So then again, we can sort of bring Jess into here. And then this version of Jess is AI. So you can ask her a question without a teacher, and she will respond because we've trained her to talk to the students about habitual enrichment, about the animals in the past. Like I say, can you tell me about the animals in this world? So then you've got the idea that she's trained on a document. Still slow, and sometimes it takes a bit of time for it to come up, but there you go. And she starts to talk about Herbivore Haven. She talks about the giraffes, the zebras. Of course, those are the animals that we've got in here. And you can go all the way around. We've got a lot of activities around the outside. So, for example, a lot of everything we do is geared around the 4 C's: communication, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. Yeah. Those 4 skill sets are around everything we've done in the EduMetaverse. So whatever the subject you're doing, even if it's maths or literacy, there's always going to be an element of creativity across it. and this is built around, I don't know if you've ever been to Sydney Zoo. It's very similar to their enclosure, but then we've got a little classroom that you can go into. And the great thing about this is that we could have somebody from the zoo come and talk to somebody who will never ever get to the zoo, or as a pre-visit for this one. We've built this one for a pre-visit. So you could have a zookeeper in here talking to students anywhere in the world. And that's the power. That's where it becomes something incredibly, incredibly powerful. And I just think you can see where we're going.
Yeah.
You can see and I think after COVID, we missed a trick. We had the opportunity then to take this further and to do something like this. But I think everybody just rushed back to the classroom because you just wanted to get back to some element of normality. So you could join me in this frame now, and I would see you wandering around. We could see each other. But the first thing when that happens, initially the kids are just like face to face. They come right up to the camera and they've got their big eyes and they're staring at you. And so again, we talked about the hybrid classroom model, and that's where the teacher can run this on the board and the students could all be experiencing it on their devices. And they don't necessarily have to all be together in the world. They can still experience it with the teacher-led facilitating it.
Amazing. Let's pause on that then. Let's come out because I want to ask you more about the hybrid part. So we can go back to that.
Down.
Yeah, if you just
mad, isn't it?
No, perfect. No, that was amazing.
Okay.
I'm fantastic in terms
I
of.
do apologise. I suffer quite badly from ADD, so I tend to just like. I'm constantly conscious of not doing that, and sometimes it's almost impossible not to. Sorry.
No, honestly, for that, in terms of being able to see, it's one of those. Podcasting is great. Like this people listen to it, but the idea is like Spotify, it's on video, it's YouTube on video. People need to see it, and then they'll have their minds blown. And then when you talk it through and you're saying about it, and now obviously we're going to talk about the hybrid side of things. Like even my mind goes, right, how could I? What could I? It's fantastic. I think it really is fantastic. So yeah, I wanted to pause on that part to pull you out to then go because you've mentioned the hybrid part. So it's like the question now that comes from there is like for schools who are looking to introduce the metaverse and this hybrid classroom model. It's like I'm curious in terms of what this hybrid model is, what it looks like, or how it works.
Yeah. So the hybrid classroom model, which is something that we've developed over the last 3 years. The thing that we were finding, and a lot of the time when the parents say things like you hit upon it, it's gamified. It's gamified. It is, and then you get the whole thing with people saying, okay, well, let's now throw a baby out with the bathwater. We're just going to go digital. We're just going to do virtual learning, online schools, what have you. So we've sort of dialed it back a little bit and said, look, you can still use these worlds. You can still use these environments, either ours or your own. But what we've tried to do by including in the PBL packs and by having the worlds as almost like an experience they can come in together, the teacher can take control. You could have these worlds up on your interactive whiteboard. And then what we do is we have the teacher having the world up on the interactive whiteboard, and quite often the students will be controlling the characters. And they'll say to the students, okay, let's go over to the elephant and let's go over to there. Let's have a look at this project here. Let's have a look at this activity. And all the students on their devices, whether it be an iPad or a laptop, we've tried to make it accessible to everybody. They then experience it on their own laptop, so you can see them all moving towards it. And then the teacher will say, okay, well, I want you to break up into groups of 4 and I want you to do that activity. And so they'll drop their iPads, not drop their iPads, that's ridiculous, but they will put their iPads down gently and go away from the interactive world and be in the classroom, whether that be on butcher's paper or what have you, still working together and collaborating in the classroom, but having the virtual world as this conduit between, which almost like increases the engagement exponentially. But then you come back into the classroom and you still do the work that you need to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, and in terms of from your side then, what I'm curious now about is sort of training and support. Like, does it take a lot of training to be able to implement this? Is lots of PD, or is it quite straightforward?
I should sell myself. I'll talk myself out of a job here, but I mean, we do offer the training. We've got, in fact, we've got online courses coming up that people can just pick up and buy and run with, and that includes virtual worlds that they can actually go into and work with. But I mean, and I'm going to be honest with you, right? So if you're already teaching in the traditional sense, it's normally you at the front of the class, talking to the students. you probably lose the first. You probably get like at the end of the session, you probably got like 5%. You lose the first 80% in the first 10 minutes. But what this allows you to do is to be able to very, very easily with just a web link, go into that world and just start teaching. You watch a YouTube video on your interactive whiteboard, but this is just a YouTube video you can move around. It's a 3D space that you just move around. Like there's no great shakes here. We've literally done everything for you. It's like there's a project-based learning pack. Every single thing on the world has like a lesson or an activity that you can do. And the kids just drop in straight away and away they go. They'll move around the world looking for stuff. So really as a teacher, we've done the work for you because we can align it to whatever curriculum you're doing. And for us now, it's in the New South Wales curriculum here in Australia. And that pack is there complete. So I know what you're doing because it's a 2-year rolling program. So when you're doing the first fleet, well, you know what? I know exactly what you've got to cover. So you just drop onto the deck of the first fleet sailing ship and you facilitate the lesson as you would. You're going to give them a worksheet. Well, now you don't need to because now they can experience what life is like as a convict on that ship. And all it would take is you putting a web link on the board and then wandering around with them.
Yeah, you make it sound super, super easy, and we've seen.
I can't make it any easier.
Well, we've seen
there's no headset. I mean, you don't have to strap on a headset, which you can. You know, we've tailored them so they work on a headset. So if you're lucky enough to have a set, you can have the whole class in there on a headset. But we wanted to use WebXR because it's accessible by everybody, anywhere in the world. Whether you've got no money, whatever it is, you can still access this sort of technology by literally just typing in a browser link and then you come into the world. It can't get any easier than that.
I'm going to go with this one now. So
go.
Obviously, you've shown us everything. It's phenomenal. It's fantastic. But
I showed you 2 out of 100.
There must be, we can see how engaging this is, but there must be, or it must come with some challenges. There must be something. And what are the biggest hurdles that you've encountered in implementing this? And especially just bringing this technology into education?
Normally the stumbling block is, this is where I could possibly go off on a rant here, but I'm not going to. I'm going to be very, very professional. I think often it could be seen as trying to put a square peg into a round hole. I mean, like the education system is almost, I don't want to say obsolete, it's creaking at the seams. Rote learning, here I am going to go now. I warned you, rote learning, standardized testing, it's all the stuff that we did all those years ago and I did as a student and then you would have done and our grandparents did it. Nothing's changed really. So what we've tried to do is create a way that you can still do all of that, but in an environment that absolutely hooks them in. So the only thing that would stop is lack of vision. Lack of vision, lack of wanting to actually move forward, an acceptance of just the fact that this is the way it's always been done, so we're not going to change anything. Yeah. That doesn't wash anymore, you know what? And it's not acceptable, and it is the worst. The worst thing I think about education is the fact that it is so resistant to change, so resistant to move. And I don't know the elephant in the room why that is. Why have we not gone anywhere? And I talk about this. I said if you went to the hospital and they pulled out a bone saw and a swig of whiskey, as they would have done like 200 or 300 years ago, you'd be absolutely mortified. And yet, if you drop a teacher from the Victorian period into 99% of classrooms, you'd still see the rows of desks, the teacher at the front, and they might have an interactive whiteboard, but it could be chalkboard for all that it matters. We just don't seem to have gone anywhere. And I think what's stopping us is, I don't know. I don't know. Something's stopping it. So I don't know. Maybe you can tell me, because I think we've been doing this for 3 years now. And the student engagement and the fact that here's the thing, right? So on the front line, I talk about the front line being the classroom. For most teachers and for most, it is about getting bums on seats and keeping them there. It's not about data-driven diagnostics. It's about, having kids happy in school, having teachers happy in school, and being able to force them through this curriculum, which we've got to do. So we've tried to create something that allows that to happen in a way that they resonates with the kids and also makes the teacher's life easier. So I don't know why the uptake isn't happening. I don't know why it's not in every single classroom anywhere in the world.
It's an interesting one because we have the saying that comfort is the enemy of progress. And
yeah, I think you just hit the nail right on the head.
Teachers, especially that, it's in terms of that, they get very comfortable. And I've experienced this in terms of a style of teaching, content they're teaching, the curriculum they're teaching. And, for me as a scientist, and anyone who's taught A-level biology, chemistry, or physics will know it's a team teaching. So the course is split. And so you would take certain modules and your other teacher would take other modules. And it's amazing, after a few years, you'll get teachers that go, no, I only teach the anatomy and physiology part. I don't want to teach ecology, for example, or the ecosystems or anything else that. And so they become very comfortable in what they've already done. And that's in a very small scale. And a broader scale then is a case of pedagogical practices in terms of, I'm someone who teaches in this way and I've always taught in that way and my results have always been good, therefore. And that seems to be that blockage in terms of, habits lead to plateauing.
Yeah.
Because I'm into this habit, and we already know about habits and they can be powerful to change them. But once you're into them, they're very difficult to then change themselves. And that's what leads to, after a couple of years in education, this plateauing of development, because they're comfortable, we're in these habits. And it's that case of, well, this has always worked. I've always done this. It's always worked, therefore. So it really renates in terms of what you're saying there about the why within education.
But I think it's also deeper than that. I think it's almost institutionalized. Like, we have student teachers coming through who you would think, these kids are going to be all over it, right? And they come to class and they've just been taught the same way that I was taught as a trainee teacher. Hang on, what's going on here? Because they're the hope, right? That when they come through, that they're going to be innovative, but they're not. They don't seem to be. They seem to have had the same training that we had.
Just had a great brainwave. We could build a teacher training world. Put it in there. One. Imagine that.
I've got one. We've got three. We've got three worlds, which we do take. To be fair, we do take students through. But I would love to listen. Any of the universities out there that have got teacher training courses, give me a shout, because we've got the framework and we've got the worlds that could upskill teacher students coming through on what is possible. And I think here's the thing, right? I think what is possible, because I don't think anybody realizes what is actually possible nowadays. Because what's out there in terms of generative AI, metaverse learning, and all of these virtual classrooms and stuff like that, I mean, the power is unbelievable. But here's the kicker, right? Because once you put the genie out of the bottle, it is never going back in again. And I think that terrifies people, and that terrifies decision makers, because they think, oh my goodness, we're going to have to do all of this now.
So what do you think then, we're obviously leading into that, is going to be the next big thing in EdTech? What is it that educators should be paying attention to? Obviously, we've got virtual worlds and the EduMetaverse that you mentioned there. Apart from, is there anything else they should be paying attention to?
Hey, look, I think it's moving so fast. I mean, my job is to keep my finger on the pulse, and I don't think I can do it. And that is my job, is to look at what is coming through EdTech-wise. You look at AI, like the rise of the generative AI, and schools saying, oh, it's cheating, and that mindset that, you know what, it's not cheating. It's only cheating because the rote learning is so archaic and old. If you've got that model, of course ChatGPT looks like it's cheating. But what if you could harness that to make and to create? And it wasn't just about standardized testing. There was something else that we could measure, like creativity. But that's never an option. We're still doing that Edwardian style of rote learning and stuff. And of course, it's going to become you can see it like a train wreck coming.
Yeah.
You can see it. You can't. It's not sustainable to keep this education system as it is. And I think for the first time that I've been pushing for that change for the last 12, 15 years maybe, now it's going to be forced. And I think that is not good, because now what could have been an optional change is now going to be a forced change.
And that leads to then resentment. But you might also find then it brings in new teachers into the industry because of the way that education can now be delivered. Yeah. And I think that could be a good thing. And I think in certain subjects, there's always going to need to be the face-to-face. There still needs to be that. But I think the hybrid model that you alluded to, and I'm a big fan of hybrid teaching, in terms of having that blend of technology and human interaction. I think it's really, really important because there's so much more learning that can take place. There's so much more student agency and control. There's so much more engagement and curiosity that can be created. And then skills, like everyone I speak to, and even myself in my new role, is all about skills.
Yeah.
But the challenge is then people just see, and especially within an international classroom, you're just seeing results. You're measured by A levels.
Yeah.
And it's difficult then to go, well, why don't you measure me by the success of my students when they're 25? Like, have I given them the skill sets to be a successful adult, a lifelong learner, to navigate university, and even such things as, look, do you have the emotional intelligence to navigate your first breakup? Because that's going to happen. And for the amount of time that our students spend in school with us, you can integrate emotional intelligence into your classroom, into your curriculum. And I mean, you even touched upon it about aging and about as a community and how we view those things. It's an easy part to bring in. It's down to then teachers, curriculum designers, and schools to go, look, we want to push these skill sets, and therefore you can use AI to go, if this is the definition of critical thinking, you can go, here's my curriculum. Can you create some critical thinking activities that are signposted as critical thinking for this subject, for this? How would I, and then go, right, well, how do I actually, no need to measure it, but how do I assess it? How do I make sure that students are developing that? And then you've got to go, well, I need some metacognition. I need them to be thinking about their thinking. I need them to be reflexive. I need them to journal or something like that. There's so many ways and means to be able to do it that brings in technology in terms of students using the classroom, technology in terms of how creative I can be within my curriculum design, but then still pedagogical approaches that have worked, that we need to work, that we need, research doing in it to get the holistic development. I think there's just so much scope for it, so much scope that you're right, we're just kind of scratching the surface. It's moving at such a speed. But I just also want to say from my side is that I think it's also, you don't want to be a jack of all trades. I think at some point you got to go, look, let's just learn to use this properly first. Let's just master this one.
Yeah.
And pick the one that fits in with what you want. So what you're showing there, some educators going to be like, this is amazing, this is going to be for us. And others might be like, look, this isn't for me. And you got to go, that's okay.
But here's the thing, it's not about them.
Yeah.
And this is the point we miss, right? Because it is not about us as teachers. It's never been about us. If it's about us as teachers, you shouldn't even be in the job. It's about the students, right? And it's always been that. And how can you pass up something? I don't care whether you use my stuff or you use somebody else's. Use something, right? It's not about the money for me. It was about the change. So if you don't want to use mine, use somebody else's, but use something because you owe it to the students, because it's not working. It's not working the way we're doing it. We're pushing them through a grinder. They come out the other side unequipped for the modern world. Absolutely, with all these problems. It's how can we not see it? And why? And my question would be to you: why is it not changing? Who's stopping it? Because somebody is, and I find that and I can't answer that question. Someone said to me, "Why do you think it's not happening?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I wish I did.
I think it's like we said before when we were speaking about teachers' knowledge and teachers knowing then what's out there, what's available, even leaders. And it can be challenging. It can be challenging to know what's out there and have a strategy rather than a plan. Like, what's my strategy for developing this? And go, what are the things out there that are going to allow me to do this? And if they're not seeing the type of work that you're doing or that others are doing, or they're not exposed to the what ifs, what could be's, it's very difficult. You need someone to come in and go, hey, if you've seen this, imagine what we could do with this, and then go, we can build a strategy around that. We can deliver something for our kids, even if it's start with 1 year group or one class. It's that knowledge is power, and as I prefer to say, application of knowledge is power. But you need someone providing you with that information to start with. Drawing to a close in with this, sort of lastly, if you could offer one takeaway for teachers and school leaders about the future, I'm going to call digital learning, what would it be?
I think you no longer have a choice. I think if we've not learned anything in the last 3 years, the world is changing at a rate it's just incredible, right? So I don't think if you're a school leader or you're involved in education, you can afford to rest on your laurels anymore. I think the times are changing and have changed, and it's not hard, right? I mean, and I go back to this, and it sounds like this is a sell. It's not. I mean, we've got training that we could run with schools tomorrow. We've got, as teachers, training other teachers. You just have to reach out and be willing to think, I'm going to take a chance here. Education is all about, it sends me very much like, oh, well, we don't want to do too much change. We don't want to make things too difficult for teachers. Well, this is basically saving their work by half, half in their workload, because the hard work's been done. But I think that the basic, somebody somewhere has just got to take a step forward and move into the digital age, because that's the world that the students are going into. I just think it's like my one takeaway would be just give it a go. Right? It's not hard. You just got to be willing to sort of give it a go. And I think that's the best thing I can tell you is just open up, and the kids will just thank you for it.
Yeah. Plus,
you'll have an increased behavior. They won't be losing their minds. They'll come to school, want to come to school, and the teachers are all happy because it's just like, okay, I got happy kids.
Yeah.
And that sounds like I'm making a massive generalization, but over 3 years, that's what we found. The kids are happier because they're doing something that's relevant. The work's engaging because it's in a format that's actually that resonates with them. I just think we just got to give it a go, and come and find me, because literally I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram. You can follow us on YouTube. Look at the videos, watch the students in there. It's all there, and it's another level.
Yeah, well, we'll put all the links in the show notes and description so people can come and find you. But it's been an absolute pleasure speaking and learning and from you and discussing these things. And thank you so much for showcasing the worlds that you've made. It's been wonderful. So thank you ever so much for joining us on the International Classroom Podcast.
No problem. I'm sorry for the passionate. It comes from passion. I mean, we build it out of passion, and the passion to make that change is sort of like all encompassing for me. And I feel like by hook or by crook we'll make it happen, but that might come across as being, angry. It's not. It's just a passion.
I don't think you ever have to apologize. I don't think you ever need to apologize about being passionate about education.
Okay, good. I will stop. No, thank you for having me on. It's really nice to have just a chat about it, to talk to, and maybe to reach people out there who are not quite sure what to do. But yeah, come and find me. There's enough avenues to get into contact, and whether you be an education department or a school, there's a lot of stuff we can do for you.
Or a zookeeper. We've seen that.
Oh, I literally live about 5 minutes from Taronga Zoo, and I've already been there. I'm knocking on their door saying, "Look at what I've built," and they're like, so hopefully they'll come back in. So if you're a zoo anywhere in the world, then you get in touch.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw on that one, San Diego. I've actually been to San Diego Zoo many years ago, whilst I was still in university, funnily enough. But I was like, yes, there we go. There's my emotional connection already.
Yeah, that's so cool. I literally have just come back from LA, and I went to Santa Ana Zoo. Ooh. And I was just walking around with my laptop trying to find any educators. It was so bad. And not because I'm trying to make a sale, but because I'm like, look what we've got. Like, they've got this. Sorry, just very quickly. They've got an amazing butterfly enclosure, and so have we. We've got a virtual butterfly enclosure that has butterflies from kids all over the world that have just sent me their butterflies, and I've put them up in this virtual world. And I'm saying to this teacher, I'm saying to the educator, look, we've got a butterfly sanctuary. You should give us a shout, and we could do something. And you can see their faces like, but I don't know,
we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We will get there. All right, man. Thanks ever so much, Andrew. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Andrew, thank you so much, and take care.
Thanks again to Smart Technologies for making today's episode possible. Smart is committed to supporting educators with innovative tools that enhance teaching and learning. From interactive displays to collaboration software, Smart Technologies is helping schools around the world bring education to life. Visit their website to learn more and see how you can transform your classroom. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the International Classroom. If you found our discussion valuable, we'd love for you to join our growing community. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn for the latest updates, behind the scenes content, and more. And don't forget, if you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us reach more educators and continue bringing you the content you love.